All right, great. Thanks everyone for joining us. We are so excited to bring you our September lightning talk. Just before I start, I'm going to do an acknowledgement of country. Um, so as we meet in this virtual space, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all joining from. I am currently on the lands of the Wurundjeri, home of the mighty people of the Kulin Nation today, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, as well as the Aboriginal elders of the other communities who may be here today. One thing that I've seen someone else do, which I thought was really interesting, is they've asked people to put the country that you're currently on in the chat. So if you're comfortable doing that, feel free to put it in the chat as well. And if you need resources for this, I'm just going to be putting a link to a map in the chat as well. Great. Cool. So I'll just start off with explaining a little bit about who we are. So we're Ladies at UX Melbourne. We're a global meetup group that started in Manchester in the UK in 2013. The Melbourne chapter started in 2014. So it's gone through quite a few people since then, and we're just the latest round of organizers here. Our purpose is to provide a platform for women identifying and non-binary folks to speak, facilitate, and share their knowledge. We are committed to creating a safe and inclusive space for all folks in the UX community. We don't tolerate discrimination of any kind, and we ask that by attending our events, you will observe our code of conduct. We'll put a link to that in the chat as well. Just before I move on, I just wanted to quickly introduce Anne Nguyen as well. She's just joined the organizing committee along with Anchal, Berlin, and myself. So welcome, Anne. Just want to say hi to everyone.
Thanks, Eva. Hi, everyone. So I'm Anne, and thank you for having me be part of this community. Even as a beginner, I look forward to adding value here and getting to know you. We can learn from each other and together nourish our passions. So for tonight, I hope you enjoy this cozy virtual space. Make yourself comfortable, grab a beverage, and I'll just quickly pass it on to Eva before we introduce the speakers.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah. So just some housekeeping. Please keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking. As I mentioned before, the session will be recorded, so turn off your video if you're not comfortable, but mostly you'll be recording the screen and the speaker anyway. I'll post a link to the code of conduct in the chat shortly, and also we are taking questions through Slido today. So you've got the code in there, but I'll also put that in the chat for you to use. If anyone hasn't used Slido before, you just need to go to sli.do and it'll prompt you for a code, and you can use that to go in. Or you could scan the QR code here as well. We thought we'd put that in, but we haven't actually tried it in any of our other meetups before. If you can scan it, feel free to go ahead. Cool. Okay. Also like to thank our sponsor Xero. So they are our major sponsors, so they help us with our meetup and also with Google Meet today. So thanks Xero. Anchal, or I'm not sure if Berlin's joined us yet. Is there anything you wanted to say, any shout outs for open roles, anything like that? All good? Yeah. Sorry, I did put you on the spot there.
But feel free to reach out to me if you want to know more about Xero. So anyone who wants to know more about how it is working here and what our product design team looks like, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn after.
Cool. Thanks, Anchal. I will pass to Anne to introduce our speakers for tonight.
Thanks again, Eva. So tonight I have the honor to introduce you to three amazing speakers. We've got Ladan, Monica, and Sherry, who they'll be talking about their stories and findings. I'll just give you a quick overview on each of our speakers. So we've got Ladan, who is an experienced designer at Electronic Arts, EA. She's got a background in psychology and communication design. She's always passionate about the games industry and is currently at EA Studios in Melbourne. Really cool. Outside of work, she loves to play new games, to understand their system, or read books to practice on narrative design. And then we've got Sherry, who is a service designer at RACV. Sherry has an extensive experience in implementing human-centered service design methodologies to create transformative service and product solutions that balance the needs of users and businesses. She's co-developed 3 innovation programs, coached over 150 innovation teams, and facilitated workshop for over 800 people across health, education, and community sectors. Outside of work, her passions include plants, over 250 of them, interior design, and watercolor adventures. And then we've also got Monica, who is a UX designer at SuperPharmacy. She is a Latinx designer and choreographer with over 10 years of dance experience. She's used this to carve her path into the magic of design, and now Monica finds herself living at the interaction of dance and design, combing these 2 elements daily to create an impact in the everyday life of our community. Excuse me. But once she doesn't have a traditional or conventional path into design, but once she's pivoted, she realized how her dance background translates to her design approach, and creating is her passion. She aims to continue to make a difference in the everyday life of people, but also connection and stories is her passion, and she aims to connect more with the design community and hear about each unique journey out there. So there we have it, our 3 amazing speakers. So first up, please welcome Ladan, who will be talking about leveling up and designing the next chapter. Welcome, Ladan.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Let's just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's just loading now.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah.
It's coming up. Cool.
Got it. Yeah.
So, hey everyone, my name is Ladan, and I am an associate experience designer at Electronic Arts. The studio is Fire Monkeys in Melbourne, and I want to just share my journey about how I designed the next chapter of my career and finding a role in my dream industry, which was game industry. So I wrote this note back in the crazy year of 2020, and I was about to really give up on the whole journey of working for the game industry because nothing was stable and everything was going wrong. So before giving up, I just wrote this like a small imperfect note, and I wrote, I will work for a game company in 2021. I attached it next to my desktop and I looked at it every day. The thing is, I wish I could tell you just writing this note did it for me, but it took me a couple of more steps to actually get my first role in the video game industry in 2021. So let's see how that journey really looked like. Back in 2012, I was a teenager. I just immigrated to Australia. I had no clue what I wanted to do in my future. And I was very scared. So I just asked from family members, what do you suggest? What do you think I need to study? And everyone said being a dentist or doctor sounds good, lots of money, very stable career. And I said, yeah, why not? So I studied science. I took units in psychology and cell biology. And in the meantime, I also worked as a dental nurse. That experience was amazing because while I was working as a dental nurse, I realized this path cannot be for me, mainly because I will faint every time I see blood. And trust me, that's not a good sign that your doctor faints every time they see blood. So I knew I needed to change my path and choose another career. But still, I was at the point that I had no clue what I want to do. But I also needed a job. So I find an amazing friend that gave me a job as a customer representative. And in the meantime, I also enrolled in a pottery class. So the combination of lots of things happened during that time. I gained this experience at work, and I also got this chance to get creative and make cool mugs as a potter. But most importantly, in the same time, my best friend was applying to go and study design in Bauhaus University in Germany. So just seeing her passion, her journey, and the steps she took to get there really motivated me to look at design as a career path and get really interested and invested in it. So with her help and my family help, I applied for Swinburne University. And when I got that offer, I was so happy. I was like, oh, this is the first step of this amazing path that I can have. I can finally study something that I fully love and enjoy. In the same summer, I got my first graphic design role, which was like a part-time job for a small company. And I added this tag here because that time I remember I felt I'm over the moon. I was like, it cannot get any better than this. Like, this is it. Like, I felt like a celebrity in my family. I was like, yeah, I get everything figured out. Nothing can go wrong. But well, in 2 weeks, I got this call from Mr. Boss, and he said, unfortunately, due to financial reasoning, we need to let go of you. And I just, of course, cried. I was so sad. I was like, oh, this is over. Like, this is the worst thing that can ever happen. I was also back then very insecure about being more mature student, not being in my early 20s. So I was very scared that, oh my God, now that I don't have a job, that means I cannot gain experience. So my chances of getting a job after graduation will be less now. But I quickly thought, okay, I can do freelance job. So I approached my friends, family, the community, and worked as a freelancer doing marketing stuff, doing designing logos, doing branding. And that was how I passed the 2019 and gaining some work experience. Again, in the beginning of 2020, amazing thing happened. I got an internship with ACME, which is my favorite museum here in Melbourne. Like, they have a section for video games. How cool is that? And I was so happy. Then this small thing happened. We called it COVID. And personally, I thought it will only stay for a month or two. So I asked them to, instead of canceling my internship, just postponing it, which they kindly did. But unfortunately, COVID stayed for longer than that, so that internship got canceled. And immediately after that, I got graduated with no graduation ceremony because COVID. So I found myself in this dark place. I was so scared. I had no idea how I can use all this experience, all these studies to get to my dream job, like how all this can help me to get there. I could not like connect the dots. And I took a couple of steps to help me with that. And it took me a time to even like group them into steps. But the first one was to just look back, and instead of seeing them as highlights and bad moments in my career, look at them individually and see what I gained from each of them. Yeah, like being a dental nurse was not right for me because I will faint, but I learned other things. Apart from that, I learned how to comfort patients during hard times. Many of them were scared of being in that situation. So I needed to find the best way that I could comfort them and make them comfortable to go through the procedure. Also, studying science helped me to do research, write good reports, and also understand the basic concept of psychology, which I'm using now daily in my work. The customer representative job was amazing because I learned how to emphasize with the clients. Sometimes they are angry, but it's not angry towards you. They are angry about the situation. So distancing, I learned how to distance myself from like that email, like that shouting on the phone, and just focus on helping them. The creative classes, applying for a university, being in a graphic design role, they were all confirmation for me that I'm on the right track. This is it for me because I was enjoying it so much. I still feel the same way when I think about that graphic design role because it really made me happy. But the most fun part was now looking back at that moment that I got fired, I don't feel bad anymore because the feeling is gone. Like I can think rationally about it. That was the moment that I realized I really want to work for video game industry. I really want to try my best and gain experience to get there because that's my dream. And the thinking at that time was strong enough that got me through COVID, got me through the cancellation of my internship and a graduation with no ceremony. But I needed another step, which was support from my friends and family. The thing with our ideas, with our goals and dreams is that we can easily like get too close to them, that we are afraid to share it with everyone else. And if we don't do that, they don't know how to support us. Like they will not understand why it is so important for Ladan to get into video game industry, why she's trying her best to become a UX UI designer in that field. So I started to just talk about it. I keep talking about it to my friends, my family, my parents, why I love to do this, what's the steps in it, and what's the process like. I also ask them to share the same thing with me, like what they want to do, like after graduation, what they wish they did. And when we build like a common ground and find like shared interested and got even interested in each other's like goals and dreams, we could emphasize with each other and support each other better. As designers, we always say that like we need to emphasize with like players, users, customers, but we also need to do the same with each other. So in hard times, we know how to best support and give advice, and also like do the same thing to others. And the final step, which we all have when we want to find a new role, new industry, anything similar, is to have a fight, like just fight and have an attack plan. So the three like parts of the attack plan for me was to just learn. Like I never stopped learning. I kept learning about the industry I wanted to join, the programs they use, and the skills that I need to gain. To be honest, like the more I learned about that, more sure I was that, okay, I really want to do this. It was fighting for, it was waiting for, so finally I can get there. The second part to it was to make great connections. Like, of course, I know, like we all know how important it is to connect with the designers in our community and experts in the industry. But when we build those connections, we can learn from their experience. We can understand their background. And sometimes we see, oh, like you share the same background and you did it. So of course I can do that too. That would be amazing. Or we can see like different backgrounds and we see how diverse everyone are. And if there is like a place for everyone with these diverse backgrounds, I'm sure there will be a place for me too. And the other thing is like the people in the industry will have you in mind because they see that you're passionate. So if a good role comes up, they will like suggest it to you and they will suggest you to their company. They can also like share the links to you when they say like find a very cool job. And most importantly, you can make amazing friends. You can talk about design. How cool is that? Like you can gossip about design, or yeah, did you see like Google change their logos? And like you can chat about that. And like you can, if you feel something is wrong and you don't know how to interact in that situation, you can ask them for advice too. So making friends in this industry is very important. And finally, trust. I know like sometimes we get tired of hearing this, but trust the process. The emotions will go away after a while and we can look back at them and see like that they were all experience points. You haven't like waste your time if you are not working exactly on what you wanted. I worked at 3 years as a dental assistant and I still could find those dots that helped me with my current career. So just know it's part of the process. It will take some time for you to figure out what you want and get there, but you will get there. And also trust yourself. The fact that you are here and you're listening to all this means you really care and you are passionate to do this. So if you want to change your career, change your role, like change something in your current job, you can definitely do it. Just be aware of your circumstances and take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. Don't push yourself too far so you get too tired. So just to wrap everything up, when you look back at your career, don't look at it as ups and downs. Look at all the amazing experiences that you have. You will definitely use it. Like, don't be ashamed of a gap between two jobs. It's normal. We all have them. Don't be ashamed if it's like not even related to your current job. It's all experience with communicating with other people and like users. And shift your perspective. Talk about your goals and values. Like everyone wants to know why you love to do what you want to do. So don't give up on that and keep fighting. Don't give up, just fight. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Ladan. Thanks for sharing your journey. And I really like how you utilized all your past experience, the good and not so good, and learned something from each and every one of them. And it's really encouraging to hear with how you dealt with challenges while your path is not linear. So it's really inspiring. Even as a big yeah, I feel like I learned so much from it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask Ladan on Slido or go through the questions at the end. Up next, we have Sherry to talk about the power of thinking tools. So let's welcome Sherry.
Let me just unmute myself and try to screen share. Share window. While I'm doing this, yeah, very inspiring talk, Ladan. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's that. Should be loading now. Yep. Cool. Great. Well, you're seeing the 2D version of me and a 1D version of me by a sketch here. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry. And first of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this talk today. A little thing is I haven't done any public speaking talk in a good while. So if there are hiccups along the way, pardon in advance. So I've been in the design industry for about 4 years now. Similar to Ladan, it took me quite a while to actually find design. So I did accounting first and then shifted to design. So here I am doing it for about 4 years now. And I've worked across different industries and different types of businesses as well. So I've been involved in small consulting agencies to large businesses. And also back in 2019, I dipped my toes in the startup landscape, and I helped establish this enterprise for young people called Crazy Ideas College. So it's this picture that you're seeing right now. So this is a social innovation program that we run with students in schools, mainly primary or people who are in trades. So this one in particular that you're looking right now is a social innovation run with 300 students in Ballarat, where we teach them about the social innovation process, social innovation tools to help them solve community problems that are very pressing for them, and partner them up with community partners who can help them implement those things or ideas that they come up with. But my background is actually in industrial design, and I also mentor industrial design students who are currently in their honors year to give back to RMIT, who taught me all these amazing design skills. And a little bit of a thank you for helping me find my passion in design. So yeah, my background is industrial design, but I have shifted to service design in my final years of doing that program. So now I have been doing service design for 3 years now, and currently am a service designer at RACV. So this is the Disneyfied, as people call it, Disneyfied version of our team. And our team at RACV, we are more of a strategic service design team, and we do mainly strategic projects across the business. And we also get involved in some tactical projects. Similar to, I guess, UX designers, we leverage human-centered approach to help our business achieve its strategic goals. And I guess a little bit about me, one of my superpowers at work is sketching. And unfortunately, these are the only sketches that you'll see throughout this presentation. But it's one of those things that I learned really well at industrial design. And now I use sketching mainly for my work in sense making, because we do a lot of research. And for me to get out of the verbal stuff, I have to actually think in abstract meaning, sketching it out. And also sketching helps us make really memorable reports. So think of it as like your accompanying editorial sketch when you have newspaper, you read articles or editorial newspapers. And then outside work, as Anne have mentioned, I do have quite a lot of plans. I think we all have pandemic stories or things that we did in pandemic that's like questionable or that still remain with us, and this is one of them. I do have a lot of plants at home, and it's very green. And yeah, So that's me outside of work. But before I dive into today's talk, I do want to tell a short story as to how I discovered mental models. So the plants were a product of the pandemic, and now that we're out of the pandemic, I guess we're kind of in a way starting to socialize again, attend meetups like this, and there are meetups that I know have gone back to in-person meetings where we're meeting a lot of new people as well. And whenever I meet new people, this is the dreaded question: what do you do? And I always stammer a little bit because I don't know whether this person is asking me to give them the long version of the answer or the short version. Are you really interested, or are you just trying to be polite? And if it's the latter, right, I don't really want to overwhelm them with the things that we do as designers, because there's a huge range of skill sets and tasks that we do in our day-to-day. Not one day is the same. So I guess in a true design fashion way, I post myself a how might we question to help me communicate what I do to people. So how might I clearly communicate what I do so that I can have meaningful connections with new people that I meet, and also discover something similar that can stimulate our conversation. And it's really funny that when you ask yourself this question, your brain kind of just like, well, I've got an answer to give you. And it gave me the answer that, well, Sherry, you are getting paid to think. Designers are getting paid to think about how to unpack the problems, really understand them, and also come up with solutions to solve them. And that line of thinking led me to this hypothesis of, well, if designers like you and me are getting paid to think, then our best asset is how we think. And so I kept thinking, well, how do we think? And for me, it's like, well, what are the tools that we have in our heads that are, of course, intangible, that we use in our day-to-day? Because I really think that as designers, we have this duty to expand our way of thinking so that we can really help ourselves excel in the work that we do, and also help the businesses that we're working for. And so this line of questioning, because there's a hypothesis, you know, you have to test it. So I went down a rabbit hole of Google searching. Oh, well, how to think better. And out of all the websites that I scoured, it led me to this blog. I'll have the link here on the side and give resources later on. It's a Farnham Street blog where there's a lot of really good articles, resources that talk about mental models, that even have courses and books. And if you're a listener, there's an Audible version of it, which is really great. So this is currently where this is my rabbit hole right now. Caveat that this is a recent discovery for me. So I only found out about this a month and a half ago. So I'm fairly new to mental models. I'm no expert by any means, but I thought, you know, this is a great opportunity for me to really, I guess, communicate what I'm learning as I'm going, and maybe encourage you as well to do the same. You don't have to have it all perfect before you present something. And also maybe this speaks your curiosity to get to know more about mental models and join me on my learning journey. So before I dive into the whole thing, I just want to pull it out a little bit in terms of context, because I know UX design also use mental models, and it's mainly about how the user is interacting with a particular system, for example, a website. For this particular talk, I'm pulling it out of the UX context and talking about it in a way that where it's applied more broadly. So let's start with a definition then, because we love definitions. Mental models are representations of how we understand the world, and they are models that we use to simplify complexity. So for example, in design, I think we're all familiar with this. We already use models in a way to simplify complex processes, like the double diamond design. We use it to simplify how we go through and solve problems. And also, for example, those who are economic fans here, we know all about, and even those who aren't, I think this is a well-known one, supply and demand. So this is a mental model that helps us understand economics and how demand interacts with the supply and therefore dictates the price. And when you're searching something and you discover something new as well, you have to kind of find the critiques on the particular topic that you're learning about. And one of the things that I just want to caveat that, there are critiques around mental models, that models are all wrong because they are indeed a simplification of chaos or complex things. So yes, all models are wrong because they're a simplification, but they are really useful because we are in our day-to-day dealing with really complex problems. And if we don't have a framework that would simplify really complex things for us, we'll likely get lost in perpetual chaos with no way to make sense of it all. And just wanted to emphasize why mental models are important. I want to read this quote to you. So the quality of our thinking is proportional to the models in our head and their usefulness in the situation at hand. So the models that you have, or the bigger mental models that you have in your toolbox, the more likely you are to have the right models to see reality. So in context of the work that we do, think of mental models as tools. So you don't just want to have a hammer, because if you only have a hammer, everything that you see or look at would look like a nail. What you want to do as a designer is be very versatile. So if you think of a Swiss knife, it has so many tools in it. You want to be like that, where you have so many tools that you can use one or a combination of to solve a problem that you're facing or you're trying to solve. So I'll be covering two mental models today. Sorry, it took a while to get to this. So first one is a mental model around problem solving, which is called first principles thinking, and the second one is around a mental model for decision making called second order thinking. So let's dive into the first principles thinking first. It's a way of thinking that allows us to deconstruct complexity by getting down to its most basic raw materials. So think of this way as like a getting down to the basics, or getting down to the root cause of something. So it's a way of thinking that's predominantly used in philosophy and physics. So your famous people like Aristotle and Elon Musk. So for example, Aristotle described first principles thinking as the first basis from which a thing is known. And he believed that everything can be organized in categories, subcategories, and the smallest group that you can find is kind of like a first principle. So it's like the atoms that make up the smallest part that make up a material, like an atom, can be considered a first principle. So I know it's quite abstract, but I'm going to give an example to hit it home. So for example, you want to understand how leaves on trees come back to life at spring. So you just don't want to study the leaves themselves, because it's going to be a very shallow understanding of what you really want to unpack. If you want to apply first principles thinking, you'd like to see the whole system, meaning where are the leaves connected? Are the leaves connected to the stems? Yes, they are connected to the stems, but where are the stems connected to? The stems are connected to the trunk, and then the trunk leads to the root, and the root leads to the soil. So that's kind of like your first principles thinking. You're looking at all the fundamental parts that make up the thing that you're trying to solve. Just a really quick one. Another example here is around Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is a big fan of, I guess, first principles thinking, and we know that he's made a lot of innovative solutions in space travel, building rockets and batteries as well. So I'll give an example on SpaceX. So when he first started SpaceX, he ran into a cost problem. So he found out that it will cost him $65 million to buy a rocket. And then he used first principles thinking to solve this. Well, he said, well, what are the raw materials of a rocket? And then he found out that it's made out of aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, copper, titanium, etc. And then when he actually got to the market and tried to identify, well, how much would all of these raw materials cost? He found out that it's only 2% of that 65 million. And from then on, he decided he'll just purchase the raw materials himself and then create efficiencies to build them, to see if he can further reduce the cost. And that kind of thinking, first principle thinking, led him to cut the price of launching a rocket by 1/10. which is a significant decrease in that $65 million. And that's the power of first principles thinking when applied in a problem. Another example of how to use first principles thinking, you probably are all aware of this. So this is the 5 whys. Hopefully I get a shout out on the chat. Let me know if you know about the 5 whys. So when I was in the justice sector, we had a problem that's posed to us. So we all went into lockdown, and services in the legal sector are delivered face to face. So we had to all do it remotely. And so the logical thing for us to help the lawyers transition into digital ways of service delivery is to digitize all the paper forms that they have to make it easy for them to deliver digital services online or to their clients. Seemed like a very good thing to do, but then after we launched the digital forms, no one used it, which was a fail. And then we try to get down to the root cause of it all by using the 5 whys. So we found out, I probably won't go through the whole 5 whys. It's probably a slide that the UX team can share later on. But by doing the 5 whys, we got down to the bottom of things and understood that, well, yes, we created these digital forms, but no one's using them because they use the paper forms. That's how they've organized their notes. They don't know how to save things properly digitally, and they don't know how to use the tool because they've used paper all their life, that they don't know how to use digital tools. So the digital skills needed uplifting. If we knew that earlier on and dug really deep, then we would have probably have done, yes, we would still do the digital forms, but in parallel would have done capability workshops to uplift their digital skills. And then the next one is second order thinking. So this is for decision making. So it's a process of thinking where you just don't think about the short-term solution, but you do the medium and then long-term implications of what you're thinking as well. So the best way to think about this is, so if you, as designers, we are in charge of recommending something. And sometimes when we recommend something, it's a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. And what second order thinking helps us do is it helps us understand what are the implications of a recommendation past that immediate, I guess, the immediate situation. So just to give us a bit of, and we see, I guess, bad decisions all the time happen when it's just short-term thinking applied. So I'm going to give an extreme example here, mindful that this is extreme. So there's a town in the Philippines who's growing and decided that since they're near a mountain, they'd log all the trees in the mountain to support the infrastructure and the growth of their town. So they use the trees there to build the houses and the buildings that they need. So that's really great short term because they have access to the resources they need to build the town, and then their town prosper with all this new infrastructure that they have. But they didn't really think long term. Philippines is near the Pacific Ocean and therefore gets hit by a lot of typhoons. And then one heavy typhoon hit the Philippines, and the whole the mountain actually collapsed on top of the town and then wiped the whole town out of the map. So that's kind of like, I guess that's an extreme example, but you can now see the implications of our recommendations if we don't think about the long-term consequences of it. So how do we do it then? Take us out of that bleak example. So what we do is if we make a recommendation to a business or to our peers or whoever, also we could use this personally. So let's say you have a decision, it will have X, Y, a positive and a negative consequence, and then you also have to think about, and then what? What are the consequences of those consequences? So to give an example, if you have a project and the project's how might we make driving safer for people, and then you do your research, and one of the recommendations that you came up with is to introduce self-driving cars, because self-driving cars, you take away the human there. They won't get distracted, not use their phones. They likely get they won't get tired or drunk while driving, and therefore make the driving safer for our road users. So let's look at the first order implications of that. So the positive consequence of that recommendation is we'll likely see a decrease in fatalities and accidents caused by human drivers. And the negative one of that is we'll likely see Uber and taxi drivers unemployed. So if we recommend this, we'll likely get a pushback because we know that will likely increase unemployment. But if we apply the second order thinking, what we'll find is that negative implication might actually turn into a positive one. As we know, if there are disruptions that usually take place in the market that usually result in unemployment, people find a way to upskill and move to other industries. So the negative will turn into a positive long term. So my call to action today is try it out. So like I said, I'm still learning this. So if you want, I challenge you to, when you have a problem at hand, when you're unpacking it, try to use the first principles thinking to really get down to its rawest or most basic things or components that make it. And then before you make a recommendation, please think about not just the short term, but also the long-term implications of your recommendations. I'll share this slide to the UX team so that they can probably give you the resources that I have here. And that is it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry. That was amazing. And thanks for sharing these slides to everyone as well. These tools are really, really valuable for us to apply in our personal life and everyday thinking, not limited to design. That way we could make better, more informed decisions as well and more critical thinking. Actually, these are so awesome, like getting to the root, breaking it down, thinking how and why. Problem solving. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll get to it shortly. But next up, we have Monica, who will be talking about reframing our thinking with snacks.
Yes.
Welcome, Monica.
Hi, guys. How are we going? Do we need to stretch a bit? You know, a little wiggle? Yeah? Get up.
I got my snacks. All good.
Yeah. Yes. I was going to get to that.
Do you want to do a dance warm up, Monica?
Yeah, we should. Like, let's just get up and let's get physical. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Yeah. So, wow. Thanks, Cherie, for that. That was amazing, right? Like, if it's amazing, guys, say it in the chat. And thank you, Ladan, as well, for sharing your journey and sharing how we can think and how we can approach with our journey. Because again, like it's been said, and you keep hearing it, design is it's not linear at all. It's like the most non-linear career you can get into. So, tough to follow that, but I will try my best. So if you don't have a drink, go get a drink right now. Go get some snacks right now, because we're going to pretty much combine what Cherie and Ladan said, and we're just gonna like tie it up in like a little cute bow, because it's very universal, like what they're talking about. So I'm going to share my snacks with you, some snacks that I've learned over my years in dancing and how I've approached dancing and overcome dancing, but it's also affected my design career in the 2 years that I've been in it. So let's get into it. Does it work? There we go. Oh, no, go back. There we go. All right, so I'm currently at SuperPharmacy in New South Wales. I'm actually in Sydney, originally from Melbourne, but I'm in Sydney now. I've been previously at AusDance New South Wales, Centre for Inclusive Design. I've made up a game for PAX Australia, and I've done some dance platforms as well. And I'm Salvadorian, Latinx choreographer, gamer, designer. But yeah, it's just about daily practices that I continue to borrow from my dance background to overcome hardships in my design aspect. Dancing itself, I've had over 10 years of dance experience, and dance teaches you how to be introspective and reflective due to the nature of the discipline itself. It constantly changes everything. Like once you think you know something, you'll never be the best at it, and it's a constant student mindset that you need to approach with it. Always at square one. It's expressive, it's subjective, and within dance, there's more losses than there are wins. But I think it never kind of prepared me to like what the design stuff had to give me. But they're very interrelated. You know, you need to look at visual spacing, negative spacing. You need to storytell without using words. Like we have to use our bodies to the song to be able to create a story, to be able to make someone sad, make someone excited, you know, get the whole branding, the colors, the set, the production, the video, the creative direction, what we're wearing, like everything goes into play. And there's a lot of intention in it. You know, you need to have intent in the choreography that you're producing, whether it's for a competition, a class, a showcase, a video, anything, you know. The Magic C's, collaboration and communication, major key players in the dance world. And we're always testing, adjusting. Like even when I make choreography, I go to my friends first and I'm like, hey, can I just like teach you like this set of 8 and see what you think? And then they say, you know, we do it. And then they say, yeah, it was good, but I wasn't really clear what to do here. So maybe teach it in a different way. And I'm like, okay, cool. So you go back, you brainstorm again. And we always constantly, as dancers, challenge ourselves to move differently. And it's always about going to class, looking up at the choreographer that we're in love with at the time, and really dissecting how they're moving. And we want to copy it. And then once we copy it, and once we know how to do it, we add our own little sprinkles on it. And we're like, okay, now that I know the foundation or like the mechanics of it, how can I add myself into the dance now? So this is 2022, but we need to go back 2 years ago, in 2020, when I made the transition to UX. So I was studying computer science at Swinburne, and I was very lucky to be able to also grow, create, co-create, and co-grow a dance club. The dance club at Swinburne called AOS. There was no dance club at the time, and I'm like, no, we need a dance club. Are you serious? Like, I need something to do in between classes. Like, I need my dancing. And like through it, it was just a matter of getting the information that I was getting from computer science, applying it to how to grow the dance club, and being, you know, like reflective again. I pretty much approached the dance club like a UX project. Like I would ask people, what classes do you want to take? Who would you want to learn from? Let me go source it out. Was that okay? Was it good? Do you need someone better? Okay, like now that the classes are sorted, what else can I do to help you grow and evolve your dance? You know, is it videos? Is it events? Is it competitions? And it kind of just kept growing and growing. And then we're like, oh, wow, it's a full-fledged dance club now. And then in 2020, I asked myself, like, what did I like about building? Because I remember saying, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do this every day, get paid for it. But I don't know what that job is like. And yeah, like I just liked creating solutions for people who needed them and seeing the impact that it had in their lives with something that they enjoyed doing. And so in 2020, I went to General Assembly, I did the UX thing, and I'm like, if it doesn't work out in a year, then I'm going to go back to computer science and we'll just see how that works out. And fun fact, we were the first cohort that made the IRL to online transition. We were very upset about it. We were very sad about it. Just like Ladan, we were like, oh, it's probably going to be 3 months. We were wrong. Like, we're still there. So yeah, and then did that. It was amazing. And then after 5 months of excruciating job search, I hear the words, "We'd like to offer you the position of a UX designer." I'm like, oh my God, I'm officially a UX designer. This is amazing. I can't believe it. And you know, I was like, yeah, like give it to me. Like I just want the job. I can't believe I got it, right? And then barely 6 months in the role, I get fired. And I'm like, huh, okay. And the next day, I find myself in sunny Cairns at a resort at a dance camp. It was like the most main character moment I've ever had in my life. And it was just this, I don't even know how to explain it. Like I was looking at like these blue, beautiful waters with greenery, and like there was like we were at a resort, and there were like, I don't know, 400 dancers at this resort, like all from international dancers coming, no, not international, interstate dancers coming through. And we're just vibing, connecting, communicating, taking class together, competing, like, and it was insane. But inside, I was like, I just got fired. Like, what? Like, I won't be able to get another UX job again. Like, what does that mean now? Right. And a lot of slowing down happened during this trip. I think it was like a 4-day trip. And there was a lot of, I kept telling myself, slow down, enjoy where you are right now. You don't have to worry about your life right now. Worry about it when we get back. Like right now, enjoy the water, enjoy the dance, enjoy people, connect, enjoy moving your body, and, you know, we'll figure it out. Like, but there were times where I'm like, you know, what does this mean? Like, do I have to tell people? How does this define me? Like, I started feeling shame and guilt because I'm like, maybe I can't be a UX designer. Maybe I'm not a UX designer. And it's like, oh, I have to go back to computer science. Like, oh no, like my dream life is literally going through my fingers. But through slowing down, going back to square one again, borrowing from what dance teaches you, student mindset, go to square one, be reflective, be introspective, ask questions like, why did this happen? Why do I feel this way? Why am I overthinking it? Why am I not overthinking it? Why am I feeling at peace, and why am I not feeling at peace? And I was writing all this stuff down, and through slowing down, it made me realize what I wanted in my next job. It made me realize that this doesn't define me, and I will be able to get another UX job. Who cares if you got fired? It's just life. You go on. It doesn't define you. It's okay. And it's what I do now that defines me, not the fact that I got fired, not the fact that I can't do the job or whatever you want to call it. It's how I get up and what I do now that defines me. So borrowing from dance, you know, it was about being open and flexible, allowing myself to be scared, allowing myself to feel challenged, and be brave in front of failure. Because I think that's the other thing too. Like, we're so afraid of failing, but failing is actually kind of fun because that's where you learn things. That's where you grow. That's when you're like, oh, that's how you do it. Cool. And then you move on. So I really want to destigmatize that aspect of shame and guilt of, oh, but I didn't get the job straight away. But I don't know how to prototype. I don't know how to Figma. I don't know how to mirror. Like, it's fine. We learn through trials and tribulations, and it's okay. So come 2021, 2021, I'm glad I got fired because it means that I had time to go back to square one. I allowed myself to decompress. I allowed myself to slow down. I allowed myself to rest without feeling guilt. And by being able to do that, I started to think about what I needed at my next job, not what I wanted. At the beginning, I just wanted a job. I wanted that title. I wanted that validation of I can get the job, and I want to live the dream tech life, right? But that's not enough because that's just a job and a culture is very different, and dance also preaches a lot about culture. If you're going to go into a hip hop class, learn about the culture, learn about the history, and embrace the culture. If you're going to go into a whacking class, into a crump class, into a jazz class, ballet class, all of those different styles of dances have different cultures, and that's what makes that dance what it is. So by doing that, I was able to challenge my natural instinct. So if I wanted to go, I'm really good, naturally good at talking to people, and I like research, let's challenge my natural instinct and let's go and prototype something on Figma. Never touched Figma in my life, never prototyped a thing in my life. I can't draw to save my life, but this is a skill that I needed. And so I'm like, okay, if I need to know how to do UI stuff, which terrified me at the time, how will I do it? Go copy people. Go find Meyer's website, Woolies website, Kohl's website, Adore Beauty, and copy it. Copy it, learn how to do it. And once you understand the principles and the structure and how Figma works in this case, or whatever works, in the context, copy it, understand it, and then you can add your own spin to it. Exactly like dancing. You copy the teacher. Once you feel comfortable in it, you add your own flavor to it. And again, like, also permission to slow down. Slow down is so important, because that's when we're able to really sit with ourselves and all of our emotions and thinking and say, what do I need? So at the time, I'm like, okay, I need a culture and a team that will be able to empower me to keep learning, because I'm still a baby UXer, right? So I want a team that trusts my expertise, that pays me to think. I want to be able to think. I want to be able to be creative and brainstorm and collaborate, but I'm never going to know the best. So I want to be able to continue learning and growing, and so culture and team was very important. So to wrap it all up, so intention and purpose, right? So I was supposed to compete at that dance competition that I found myself in, but I didn't, because I prioritized the job, and I prioritized a job that I felt didn't align with me for so many different reasons, but I accepted it anyway because I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought that was the adult thing to do. But once I came back from it, I'm like, no, I want to move to Sydney to pursue dance. I want to move to Sydney to train with different people, be around different energies, continue to grow. And this was July 2021. And I figured, yes, I can apply for a job, but the world in Australia is so unstable right now that it would be very unrealistic for me to expect stability when the world is not stable. But then I can't just do anything. So through slowing down, through understanding what didn't work in my previous job, through copying, I was able to have intentional growth. So rather than just doing things for the heck of it, I'm like, okay, I've never played with information architecture before, so let's go and gamify it. I love video games. Let's make a game out of it. What can we do with it? Film it, document it, play the fool, try different things, and see how you go with it. And then 2022 hit, New Year's hit. And after copying and being intentional with what I wanted to learn and what I wanted out of my next team, out of my next job with purpose, I was able to apply for jobs. And within a month, like, I applied for SuperPharmacy January 10th, and February 7th, I got the job offer. And February 14th, Valentine's Day, I started the job. And by being intentional with what I needed with the team as well, it allowed me to ask questions in the interview to really understand whether this team was going to work for me and whether I was going to work for the team as well. And if you had told me a year ago you'll be, UX in healthcare, I'd be like, no way. I've never worked in healthcare in my life. But I knew that I wanted to be able to use my skill set to help people in their everyday life without them really realizing. And something that's important to everybody. Everybody prioritizes health, and just the work that we do is so purposeful and so rewarding that every day I get to wake up, I'm like, I'm living my dream job right now, I'm living my dream life, but I never thought it would be in healthcare because I was so caught up in like all the noise. You gotta like filter the noise out, and again, that's to slow down. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, whenever you're feeling like this isn't going to work for me, I'm sick of getting ghosted, I'm sick of being rejected, have a snack. Just chill back and have a snack. And snacks are slow down at the beginning. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, whenever you feel like everything's not working, slow down and define what you're trying to achieve means to you. If it's a job, if it's a job interview, if it's friends, what does that mean to you? Write words, all the feelings that come up, document it so it's out of your system. Define your North Star. So by slowing down, if you're able to have a North Star, that will keep you true to yourself. And whenever you're focused down and you look up and you're like, yep, that's what I want. Or you can filter out the noise by, we want to offer you a job, but it's like, does it align with my North Star? Probably not. Or no, don't. So just be like, thank you, but I need to choose something that aligns myself with that North Star. And when you close your eyes, like, what does your future self, what are they doing? Like, do they work from home? Do they go into the office every day? Do they travel? Is it tech? Is it e-commerce? Is it health? Is it books? Like, what is it? And that will help you define your North Star. Along with that, your non-negotiables. So if your dream job was offered, why would you say no to it and stick to them? For example, one for me was I need someone, or like the team needs to understand how important and a priority that dance is for me, because I'm not stopping dancing anytime soon. So it doesn't really make sense for me to apply for a job that expects me to work overtime all the time. Like some people it works, but I'm like, that's a non-negotiable for me. Like, that again goes with the culture, which goes into the next bit of there's a job and then there's a culture. And with culture, think about which patterns, behaviors, perceptions you want to be surrounded by. So, so if I want to continue to challenge and continue to learn, you've got to find a culture that reflects that. And once you're in it, contribute to that culture, find how you can add yourself into the culture, like, TikTok Tuesdays, or on Wednesdays we Uber Eats, and it has an influence in what you're doing, right? And copy, like, learn the art of copying. Imposter syndrome is either going to be your enemy or your best friend. So it's just better to befriend the imposter syndrome early. And most of the time, the imposter syndrome will tell you what you need to work on. So if you see a prototype that's amazing, or you see a really nice gradient landing page and your imposter syndrome comes out and says, you'll never be able to do that, just be like, oh yeah, watch me, and go copy it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just go and copy it. YouTube it, find out how this designer did it. And once you understand how it's done, add your own little spin and, like, sprinkles to it. Because at the end of the day, that's what dancing is. Dancing is just copying, learning, foundation, and adding your little spring to it. So yeah, just have a snack, and I'm always here if you guys need to talk or anything like that. So that's me.
Thank you, Monica. That was so inspiring, and your slides are so vibrant as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I really like how you change your relationship with failing and just learning from really good examples. I think, yeah, they're really good, like very introspective as well. And snacks is a very easy thing to remember, very creative.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for sharing. So, yeah, remember to ask questions. I think we'll move on to question time now, but a quick thank you to all our speakers. It's such an honor to be here to listen to all of you speak, Sherry, Monica, and Ladan. So just looking at the questions now, should I go through? Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen so that we have the questions in front of us. But just before we do that, I just wanted to quickly mention that in terms of agenda, we're going to go into Q&A for a few minutes, and then we've also got quick kind of breakout rooms for some networking. So that's completely optional if you want to stay back, but just letting you know now so that it's not too sudden later on. And with that, I'm going to share my screen. Thanks, Anne. Over to you.
Oh, Eva, should I ask the questions for Sherry first?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I think Sherry might have to hop off soon.
Yeah, okay. So to Sherry, you said designers are paid to think, which I love. A challenge I often face is the rush to do/deliver. How do you carve out the time and space to think?
Okay. Yeah, I should have caveated that that when I said we get paid to think productively, because any kind of overthinking or rumination is really not productive at work or in our personal lives. So we have to translate that thinking into something productive for us. So I guess so what's the original question? It's about how do we carve out time and space to think? And we're also keep in mind that we have deliverables. So in the projects that I do, we usually, where there's a lot of thinking time involved is in research. So when you're trying to make sense, especially in synthesizing data, so that's when you have to leave a lot of fat when you're doing project planning, because that's where the magic happens. You really have to think and be able to, for example, find out, I guess, this weed out the signals from the noise when you're synthesizing data, and that needs time. And also, if speeding up the process of thinking, we are very collaborative as designers. Don't think in a vacuum. I would say, yes, carve out time to think by yourself, but also carve out time to think with your team, because that's something that would really help you boost I guess the amount of time that it takes to think, and also to come up to whatever it is that you want to come up with. And carve out time is really about time blocking. I guess you have to prioritize it. You have to think a lot, time block it. You have to synthesize and it will require 2 days, time block it. And it's something that you require, I guess, that you have to talk to your team about and say, hey, I've got 2 days that I really have to dedicate for synthesizing data. And I'm sorry, but I will be declining meetings during that time to safeguard your time as well, because you are in charge of a deliverable. Just make sure that that's clearly communicated and that is okay with your team. And if of course, there are sometimes unavoidable meetings, but that's okay. But at least you're weeding out the non-essentials out of your time. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks for that, Sherry. I think we have Gerda raising a hand. So how does it work, Gerda? Would you like to ask your question? Sorry, I'm not sure how this works.
No, that's okay. I'm not sure if that was just... Yeah.
Okay. All good, Gerda. Sorry. So one more question for Sherry, if that's okay with you, Sherry. Yeah. Thank you for your time. So the question is, I know we are going to be sent resources for mental models, but I'm curious to know now, what are some of your top of mind favorites?
The top of my favorites are actually the ones that I shared today, because I think they're the ones that are really useful for the work that we do. So they are my top favorites, but I would actually share another one here in the chat. If I can find this thing back. So there's a website called Untools, and they're really great because they actually have great visuals and really clear and succinct explanation as to how you could use mental models for different things. And you probably appreciate the UX of it as well. Oh, there we go. And Shell already knows. Yeah. And this is another favorite of mine, which is the abstraction laddering. I won't go into detail, but it's essentially you have a problem, you have to identify whether it's down in the weeds or you have to pull it up a little bit further by asking if you have, this is probably really abstract, if you have a problem statement, try to understand where that is placed. Is it more strategic or is it really tactical? That's kind of like how that abstraction laddering, the way I'm using it right now. But yeah, check out Untools. It's a great website, and they're also launching an app soon. I just pasted the
Awesome.
link in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, I'm really conscious of your time as well. So if you have to go, then yeah, whoever has any more questions for Sherry, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. And Sherry, thank you so much for your talk tonight. I really love your drawing and your superpower and your plans.
Thanks so much, Anne. Thanks all. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and I'll see you probably in the next UX talk as me as a participant or not. Yeah, as in like an audience.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Have a good night all. Thank
Good
you.
night. So we'll go to the top of the questions. These are for Ladan. Love hearing your journey. Out of curiosity, what are some of the challenges, learnings when applying for game design roles, such as EA?
Yeah, so to be honest, like the most challenging part was to have like related experience, like video game industry experience. And it's like video game industry, UX UI, and then mainstream UX UI. And unless you don't work for a studio, you cannot really have a shipped project that we can showcase those experiences. So what really helped me was working on my like passion projects, just making like a game and focusing on having like a good UX and UI for it and present it in my portfolio. The other thing is like if you are studying like in your final year or in your second year, just include aspects of gamification and video game in your UX UI projects. Because I'm sure like you have an option to choose your projects. You can just talk to your lecturer and mention like you are looking for like a career in entertainment industry, and then you can say like I want to pick a game instead of like a product or a website and go from there. But yeah, I think like that was the most challenging part, just finding enough like ship projects that I worked for that were in video games.
Thank you. So the next one we have for you, Ladan, is it was interesting to hear how you shift your perspective when looking back on your experience. What was your process for unpacking those insights?
Yeah, to be honest, like that one took me a while. I'm one of those people, like if a truck hits me, I will say sorry to the truck and all four wheels and say I will not do it again. So my confidence level is not that high. So I really needed to work on that. And what really helped me was to talk to people on LinkedIn, like designers that work for game studios that I dream to work for, and just mention my story. And they actually were the ones that pointed out, like, why you say, like, you are sad that you don't have related experience. You worked as a dental assistant. Like, it has, like, point A, B, and C in it. Like, why don't you, like, see them? And they really opened my eyes to, like, change my perspective. And that's why I think it's important to explain your dreams and just keep talking about them so people can help you to even, like, see, oh, my God, you have this amazing, like, experience in your bag. But, yeah.
Cool, thank you, Ladan. How are we going with time, Eva, for questions?
I think we can keep going with a few more. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, Monica, questions for you. Thank you for sharing your amazing journey. Can you share some questions that are good to ask in an interview to understand a team and culture?
Yes, very, very important to go into a job interview prepared. And this, it can vary. This has a lot to do with your North Star and your non-negotiables. So once you figure what those two are, you can then create questions around those two in combine to then bring to the interview. For example, for me, I love upskilling. Like I'm just a student of life. Like I'm constantly learning new things. And so one of the questions that I brought to the interview was, how does upskilling look like in the team? I also, I've defined for myself that process was very important. Like I didn't want to go into a company that had no UX designers like at all, and that they were still building that agile double diamond process. Because if I'm responsible for that, then there's no way for me to actually think and do my job accordingly. So I was aware that I needed already something set up. It didn't need to be fully fleshed out, something set up. So a question could be, what does the process look like? What does the handoff look like between developers and designers? And if the answer is something that you're not really wanting to hear, you can then poke at it a bit more and say, what does the evolution look like in the first 3 to 6 months? And it's also important to ask in a job interview, what will my deliverables be, or what is expected of me between 3, 6, 9, 12 months, because that gives you kind of like an idea of what you'll be doing on the day-to-day. But again, it goes back to your North Star and your non-negotiables for that.
Thanks, Monica. Do we have time for one more question? Yeah. Okay, another one for you, Monica. So you mentioned the GA course. Which did you do, and did you find this gave you the skills you needed to get started in UX?
Yeah, so I did General Assembly, the 12-week bootcamp. I think it was the immersive in Melbourne. And for me personally, I went more in to formalize my dance background and my dance skills to understand what I already had and what were my gaps and what I needed to address. For example, Figma was a huge gap in my arsenal, but research, just due to my education, my background, and dance, it was already kind of fleshed out, and I just had to understand how UX and companies approached it. So it gave me the skills. It also gives you a good network of your cohort. You're all in this similar journey together. And shout out to Hyun, because she's an amazing careers coach. She works a lot with grads and stuff. And whenever you're feeling like you can't do it anymore, she definitely fires you up and helps you out. And you learn how to network and reach out and do cold connections on LinkedIn as well. So it goes back to that finding community and connection to understand which avenue you're in.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your experience, Monica.